It's the political season, Dan. It's
that's like the fourth episode you started with. This is the political season.
It is.
It is a season, though.
And it's the Democratic National Convention's going on right now.
Yeah, I watched 10 minutes of it last night, had an aneurysm. I had to go to the hospital.
If you thought the RNC gave Dan heartburn, you have no idea.
No, I'm serious. I didn't last 10 minutes. I really didn't.
Yeah. I mean, you're at least consistent with your...
That's true.
With your feelings towards things. So, we're going to have another political conversation, Dan. And I know that...
I want the world to know that this is Ben's idea, not Dan's idea, okay? Ben's leaving, so he wants to talk about politics 24/7.
I love doing this because I really want...
To cause trouble.
But at some point, Dan, before every episode, Dan's like, I just want you to know, I'm just going to be very calm and I'm just going to be very even-keeled. And at some point, he goes...
He pops.
He just pops and explodes. And so anyways, that's...
and you just sit over there and grin. We should cut the camera over to him at that moment. Just that cheesy grin. Oh, I got him.
So okay. I'm going to throw out a controversial question to you, Dan. All right? And I want you to be able to answer this because Charlie Kirk, one of your favorite commentators,
oh my God,
said something to the effect of, you cannot be a Christian and vote for the Democrat Party. Mm-hmm. Or Democrat candidate. I forget what he said, but you can't vote Democrat and be a Christian. Something to that. I don't have the exact quotation, but it was headlines everywhere. Was it 2 or 3 weeks ago? I'm not sure, but it was a couple weeks ago. So I'm curious as what your response would be to Charlie Kirk or to Christians who believe you cannot be Christian and vote Democrat.
Yeah. Well,
and this is after you just said like the DNC made you have an aneurysm last night.
Well, part of it was with the topic that I happened to turn on when Andy Bashir from Kentucky was promoting abortion, and that's a hot topic for me on a lot of different levels. I'll say this first of all: Charlie Kirk is one of my least favorite evangelical right leaders.
Why is that?
Just there's a lot of history there because he at one time was the founder of the Falkirk Institute at Liberty University. It was founded after Jerry Falwell Jr., who is, a man of poor reputation. I think
that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, I think I'm trying still to be reserved. And he was the other side of it. He's a firebrand. He's a pot stirrer. And I think when he grows up, he'll be less of that, or he'll be.
How old is he?
Remember him.
Do you know?
He's got to be in his 30s, don't you think, Josh?
Probably.
In his 30s, yeah. And I had a lot of those characteristics when I was his age, so I might need to be more patient than I am. But I didn't have a national platform either. So, but I will say this. I'm really uncomfortable with the question because I feel like it violates – I feel like this is one of those few times when it violates the thing about when Jesus says, that we ought not be judging, judging whether someone is a Christian is not my domain. It's not my responsibility.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'd ask the question, how could someone in good conscience vote for a party or an individual who seems to stand for the antithesis of biblical values? And I say that in the context, I'm assuming I'm speaking to Christians. But that's also why I'm not voting for the Republican nominee at this year. So, because I don't find either candidate of sufficient biblical worldview and philosophy that has earned my support. And that's on them. People all the time constantly want to, well, you're the reason why this is happening. You're the reason why we're going to get 4 years of this. And no, it's not. It's not my job to state a platform that they can get behind. It is their job to state a platform that I can get behind because I'm the voter. I hold the power. And if you can't convince me, I don't owe you squat. So that's why I'm not voting for either the Democrat or the Republican this year, because neither one have earned that. You say, well, some of them have positions that are closer to you than mine. Yeah, but quite frankly, I trust the character of Kamala more than I do the character of Donald Trump on a personal moral level.
Why do you say that?
Because he's a repeat philanderer who talks about grabbing women's genitals. He's obviously a John who pays prostitutes for sexual favors. I mean, those things are on the record. And so, yeah,
Also convicted of sexual abuse.
Yeah.
So
and we like to say, well, that was a setup. Well, the jury system is in place in this country and has been for 200 and some odd years. And so we don't get to pick and choose whether we like it or don't like it. He was convicted by a jury of his peers.
Yeah, I love how the conversation went to Trump.
It did. Yeah. But, I think that's the majority of our listeners are going to be far more empathetic with Trump than that because we are
totally 100%.
Conservatives. I'm a conservative,
yes,
which is a reflection of my biblical worldview because the gospel never changes. Conservatives are resistant to change. Well, and I am absolutely committed to not changing theologically in spite of what the politics is telling me I must do or the culture.
Yeah, I think that's it's a really interesting issue because I think a lot of evangelical Christians since 1980, I mean, this is going back generations.
1980 is the rise of the moral majority.
Right. What you have is a Republican Party that aligned itself with socially conservative, and we might even say biblical values, right?
Mm-hmm.
And certain things like, pro-life, pro-marriage, pro-family, all those kinds of things. And what's interesting to me, Dan, there's a really good article, and I would encourage everyone to go read it. It's on the Gospel Coalition website. Yesterday, man, I'm dating myself when I say this because I'm not sure when this will be released, but they just released an article by which they evaluated the platforms of every major political party on how they stand on these social issues. And what I found fascinating is for the first time the Republican Party platform is now is not pro-life.
Right.
It's not
pro-traditional marriage.
It's not pro-traditional marriage. And these were always things that when you asked any evangelical Christian, well, who are you going to vote for? I vote Republican because, pro-life is number one and pro-marriage and now those things have been stripped from the party platform. So now I guess the question is that's no longer a reason to vote. Now what I'm saying is I'm taking a wide-angle view of this conversation. For years, we were told vote for these social issues, which I'm not saying you shouldn't vote for them, but Dan, how many states 20 years ago outlawed gay marriage? I think it was like over 30, right? There was actually constitutional amendments to over 30 states that prohibited.
Yeah, the Senate passed the Defense of Marriage Act in the 1990s.
Yes, so I mean
under Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton. Even 2012, Barack Obama running for president said he did not believe in gay marriage.
Yeah.
And look where we are today.
Yeah.
The whole point is voting for social issues. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't vote for social issues that are important to you, but that does not change the culture. It does not change people's hearts. We have been voting for things for generations, and things are becoming more secular. And so we're waking up today, the Republican Party is in many ways abandoning the evangelical voting bloc. But I think what they're saying is
I don't think that's the case. Honestly, I don't. I think they're taking them for granted.
Okay, so maybe that's what I'm saying.
Because predictably, here's my, and this is controversial. Okay, so you baited me. Here we go.
I was waiting for me to get into it. Let's do it.
Okay, so I'm going to make an outrageous statement, and then I'm going to explain it.
Okay.
Evangelical Christians are to the Republicans what African Americans are to the Democrats.
Okay, explain.
Pawns. After the 1964 civil rights legislation passed by Lyndon Johnson, with the help of the Republicans, by the way, because many Southern Democrats were Jim Crow types.
Yes, totally.
Okay? So that's when the parties began shifting.
True.
But because of what they'd experienced, many Southern blacks have never forgotten. And that was a breakthrough piece of legislation. At first was the Great Society and Roosevelt, and then what Johnson did. Yeah. New Deal.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, New Deal and in Great Society was Roosevelt, and then the birth of the massive entitlement program intended to bring African Americans out of poverty, 1964, Lyndon B. Johnson. All right, so they became very, very loyal. However, after $5 trillion worth of subsidies and all kinds of things, the typical African American statistically is worse off than they were in 1964. And the ones that are successful, the ones who have broken out of that and become entrepreneurs and business owners and have generational wealth to transfer and so forth. But by and large, your mainstream inner city African Americans still struggles like they did in 1964. Racism is still alive and well, by the way. So it didn't solve that either. All right. But the Democrats, year after year, say just enough so that somewhere between 90 and 96% of African Americans always vote for the Democrats. They give them enough crumbs off the table. Well, the Republicans are doing the same thing to the evangelical Christians. So they get a few high-profile people like Robert Jeffries, Franklin Graham. Jeffers.
Yeah.
There's a different, I'm thinking Jim Jeffries. Yeah, Robert Jeffers, Franklin Graham, an assortment of Pentecostals, charismatics, and so they have these figureheads, and by and large, they're my friends, they're my family who tell me, well, I'm not electing a pastor, I'm electing a president. You got to choose the lesser of two evils. I've heard all the arguments ad nauseum 1,000 times, but in the end, the Republicans know they can strip their party of pro-life positions, they can strip their party of pro-family positions, and we will still, like the faithful pawns that we've become, walk into the voting booth without question, do what we've been doing since 1980, pull the Republican levers. I'm out. So I'm not doing that anymore.
Okay, so what would it take for you to vote Republican again? I'm curious.
I'm not saying I won't vote for Republicans.
You're just saying right now.
I won't vote for some Republicans. Right. I won't wear their colors.
There is one he has said he's not voting for.
No, there's more than one. Well, he's just the big guy, the big bright orange one.
So.
But at the same time, do I align more closely with many of the values? I'm a smaller government guy. Republicans say they are, but they're just as responsible for the national debt as we are.
You literally are the most conservative person I know.
Yeah, but that's a difference. You see, Donald Trump has destroyed the Republican Party because it has changed it apart from a party at least that gave lip service, not always followed through because politics is politics, but they gave lip service to conservative principles. That is no longer a conservative party. It's a populist party.
Yes.
And that's why they shifted their position on marriage and things, because the population shifted. So rather than have a principled position about things like gay rights and trans and so forth, bit by bit, they're moving to where the majority of Americans are.
Do you think
but they're going to leave, they should be leaving more of us in the dust, but right now they are. And so that gives the opportunity for a third party to emerge, or for there to be some kind of civil war, which I believe is going to be occurring when Trump loses in 85 days, that then the Republicans either going to commit itself more fully to the populist model, or they're going to return to the conservative model. I don't know which. I suspect it'll be populist. But at whatever point, it's okay. You know what? My faith isn't here. My identity is not in my citizenry. My identity is in Christ. So I don't have to be involved in politics. There's no biblical mandate that says I must be. I can still continue to live my life faithfully and vote for individuals that have earned that. You asked the question at the beginning, can you in good conscience vote for a Democrat? I could if they were a pro-life, pro-family, on the moral issues. But I don't see any.
But their platform is, they were like...
but let's be honest, we don't vote for platforms. Platforms are forgotten the minute they leave the city of the convention.
True, but what I'm saying is you know that the Harris-Walz political, if they get in...
They're extreme left.
They're extreme left, and the progressive agenda will advance in our country.
Yes, it will.
And it's interesting because... David French actually wrote an article a week ago about him actually...
my French just burst into flames. I got private messages all over the place. What do you think about David French? I said, I think he's smart. I don't necessarily agree with him, but I think he's smart.
So and there's positions that he's taken that I don't agree with. Yeah. Again... But
at least he thinks...
He actually came out saying, I'm voting for Kamala Harris because I want to rid the Republican Party of Trumpism. So
that's kind of like cutting off your nose to spite your face.
I don't know if I agree with that, but what I would say is, at the end of the day, what I hope, and with our conversation we had about the 5 responses to Trump, which we're getting some incredible feedback on.
Not necessarily positive.
Which I knew we would, because but
and remember, Ben brought that discussion to the table.
I just want us to think. There's an excellent article that I read on Christianity Today, and N.T. Wright. I'm not sure if you've read any of his things, but
brilliant.
But N.T. Wright is brilliant. Okay, I might not agree with all of his theology. There's some theological stances he holds about the atonement that I do not completely align with. Okay, let me just say that. But he is a very smart person who knows the Word of God.
Like David French.
And he wrote a book on Jesus and the powers. Basically, the whole idea was this notion of, he asked some when Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine, he wrote to two of his evangelical friends over here in the United States who teach at universities, and said, what is the Christian political response to this world event? And he couldn't get anything. There's no, like, what he said is there's basically a huge void of critical Christian political activism and activity. How should a Christian engage within the political sphere today? And I think what's happening is, like you said, Christians have become pawns as opposed to becoming thinkers. And Ed Stetzer wrote an article as well when the Republican platform came out. He basically said, "Hey, if Christians aren't aware of this, we need to, step up." And his whole thing was, we are not jersey wearers; we are actually the umpires. And we need to take a position as an umpire, calling balls and strikes on both teams to say, that's right, that's wrong, as opposed to we wear the jersey of one of the teams. And again, I think traditionally it was easy for evangelicals to do that based on issues, social issues, and even what I would say are economic issues, because at the end of the day, you and I would both agree, Marxism has caused more death and destruction to Western civilization and to human flourishing across the world, which I genuinely believe that the Democratic Party has been overtaken by Marxists. I mean, I think there was a time where they were a little tribe within it. It's full-fledged gone Marxism, and I absolutely hate Marxism. And so I do think they have way more problems than the Republican Party does. But I think what evangelicals did was they found a home within the political party of the Republicans, because, hey, they agree, they are anti-Marxist. Hey, they are, pro-family, they're pro, traditional marriage, they're pro-life. And now with that, since those are gone, the only thing that really keeps anybody voting that should keep people voting Republican are issues of possibly education and fiscal policy. That's it.
Yeah. In fact, many of the leading Republicans today would say that I am a social liberal and a fiscal conservative.
Why would they say that about you?
They say, no, not about me. They just say that in general. That's their identity.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw an interview last night of a guy said, well, when it comes to social issues, I'm just live and let live. Well, that's libertarian, first of all, and I'm a conservatarian, but my line draws more firmly on the social aspect than it does on the economic aspect. Because I also think capitalism unfettered by a moral compass becomes abusive as well.
Yeah, because capitalism run by corporations is destructive. Which
is why America is in the process of coming undone, because as Adams has said, in order to be I'm trying to think of the exact quote, and I'm going to screw it up. But basically, he said, America's responsible. In order for America to be great, America must be good. That was de Tocqueville. But the bottom line is we must first be a moral nation because immoral people cannot handle democracy. And you can look across the Middle East to discover that.
Yeah. I hope that Christians, whatever happens as a result of this election, and I think it should be a wake-up call. It's always funny how Christians respond when Republicans get elected compared to Democrats. It's always, oh my goodness, we need to really pray. When Republicans get elected, it's like, oh, take the foot off the gas. It's kind of chill for a while. And it's like, no, because the reality is, if we're going to change hearts and minds in this world and in this country, it begins with the gospel. It begins with us living out on mission. And I do think we need to think more critically about politics. I do think we need Christians more engaged in politics. I'm not advocating for an Amish abdication of culture and society. I'm not wanting.
We're not saying don't vote.
I think you should. I think you should vote your principles, morals, convictions that they align with Scripture. But be aware of the trends of the two major parties, and don't be ignorant of that. That's all. That's what I want to say. But can a Christian vote for a Democrat? Of course they can. I think they're compromising a lot, but that's just my that is my 10-second response to that question.
But I also think the same thing applies. I think that it is a violation of biblical principle to vote for some Republicans or some libertarians.
Okay.
In spite of the flag that they carry or colors that they wear or however you want to put the identity issue.
Yeah.
I would not vote for Boebert. Is that her name? Boebert?
Yeah. Boebert.
Lauren Boebert.
Lauren Boebert. Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Marjorie Taylor Greene or Matt Gaetz.
Yeah.
Gates.
Matt Gaetz, yeah.
I wouldn't vote for them for really, really specific reasons.
Yeah.
And it's regarded to their character and so forth. So they're Republicans I wouldn't vote for. And I would say this, the great thing about the way we vote in America is you close the curtain behind you if you want to, and you don't even need an explanation. I tell people how I would vote because I'm a public figure. And because I like to engage in rigorous
As
conversation.
we said in past episodes, Dan likes the mosh pit.
But but the other thing too is, and I want people to understand this, and you're this way too because you like to cause trouble. You're just nicer about it than I am. but strong people who think we have opinions, but we can still be friends. We can still love each other.
I know we're towards the end of this episode. I remember what my professor, Dr. King, used to do in our church history class.
Was that Martin Luther?
No.
Okay, just one check.
Jim King. He was a great man, loved Jesus, taught me so much, critical thinker. We would be studying church history, and we'd be studying these church fathers, and he would be like, so this guy believed this, and this. Do you think he's in heaven? And we're like, oh, man. And it would have us debate, like, so what's can you believe in certain doctrines that we would find today, like, well, I don't believe in that. But you're like, well, was he still a Christian because he believed in these doctrines? It was a fascinating exercise for an entire semester of taking these characters and these historical figures within church history and applying the gospel filter to them and say, what were they right on? What were they wrong on? Can you make a judgment call on these people? And it made you think critically. And that to me is what I'm hoping these conversations about Trump, about this question, I want to stir the pot, because whether you get really angry at Dan for this episode or you get angry at me, you get angry at listening to this, what I'm hoping to do is we're plowing the field to hopefully plant some seeds to say, don't just do something because you've always done something. Really think critically about something. And if you want to learn, if you want to develop convictions on why do I do what I do, then you have to move forward in this area. So
don't be a pawn, be an umpire. And that's what. And you know what? Sometimes you disagree with the umpire, but the umpire has to stand for what he believes.
Always stay engaged.
But always
stay engaged.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We could have just said that in 10 seconds and saved ourselves 22 minutes. But I enjoyed hearing you talk.
But we wouldn't get near the mail that we would be getting.
And that's why we're here.
And by the way, if you go to Life Fellowship and you've heard this, don't be bothered. Don't be offended.
Yeah.
Because we love you. And we love the Bible.
That's right.
And sometimes you'll see things differently than we do. So engage in conversation.
Yes.
Take
Dan out for coffee.
Take Dan out for coffee. We'll have a great time, and I promise you I will not be upset with you. Ben would, but I won't.
Oh yeah, you know me. I'm the hammer guy. Totally.
But we love you. We do want to poke you in the brain. We do want you to think. That's just why you listen to Life Talks.
Absolutely. So, hey, thank you again for taking some time listening to this episode. We always love to hear from you. LifeTalks@LifeCharlotte.com. Not just your comments, but also your questions. Maybe you have a political episode for us to do. We would love to hear from you. If you have an idea for Dan and I, thanks again for choosing to listen to us today. We'll talk to you next time.